Now, live from Whitney Media, 1460 WVOX, the Greenburgh Report with Greenburgh Town Supervisor Paul Feiner. You can join in the conversation at 914-636-0110. Now on 1460 WVOX, here's Greenburgh Town Supervisor Paul Feiner.
Good evening. Good morning. My name is Paul Feiner. I'm the Greenburgh Town Supervisor, and we have a very interesting and timely program today. Politics is tough. American politics is competitive, frustrating, infuriating. Issues are important. And the question is, does politics have to be demonizing? Does it have to bring out the worst in us? Do our politics have to destroy the goodwill of our society? And there's an organization called BRAVER Angels that does not accept the division. They say no to the breakdown of political and social life that it brings. My guests today are David Greene and Randy Freeman, who are with the Westchester chapter of BRAVER Angels. And maybe, David or Randy, you could start by just telling us a little bit about what BRAVER Angels is.
Yeah, I'll start with that, Paul. And thanks for having us on. It's just interesting to hear that prior to your show, the O'Reilly report was talking about the anger in this election, and we know that is a problem, and the rage that seems to be coming around with everybody. Any political conversation over the last 4 years has been very difficult for us. And so 4 years ago, BRAVER Angels was actually created as a citizens organization uniting red and blue Americans to try to depolarize America. And we try to bring the two sides together to better understand and engage with each other, to form community alliances and advocate for a far less polarizing style of politics. And BRAVER Angels, which can be easily joined by going to the braverangels.org website, does this through a variety of workshops and debates, which brings community members, both local and national. Interestingly enough, because of the pandemic, we've actually been able to have far-reaching workshops because of Zoom, because people can be anywhere and join our workshops and debates. And so it's actually inadvertently been a help to us. So the name BRAVER Angels actually comes from a variation of Lincoln's first inaugural address, where he told Americans that the Union would ultimately endure through the rediscovery of the braver angels, the better angels of our nature. And so we don't seek to change anyone's mind. We don't seek to embrace centrism. Our goal is to simply to lower the temperature of the nation's political climate so we can actually come together to meet the challenges we face as a nation. So that's basically what BRAVER Angels was set up to do and what we're attempting to do now.
Randy, what got you involved?
Oh, in 2016, I felt the temperature go up and found myself screaming at the television set. And when I actually read about then Better Angels, but BRAVER Angels in a professional magazine that I read for work, and one of the founders of BRAVER Angels had written a beautiful article. And when I read the article, and this was Bill Doherty, who uses marriage counseling techniques to formulate the workshops. And when I read about it, I said, I have to join this organization. And literally I think it was early 2017, I was an active member, and I've been an active member ever since. It just exemplifies everything that I believe we need as a country.
And do you have monthly meetings in Westchester?
Yes, we meet. Our alliance meets monthly in Westchester. Dave Greene and I are the leaders of the alliance, and we set up different interesting topics to talk about. We have people on both sides of the political divide, both people on the left and people on the right, and we've managed to really have civil conversations and go pretty deep with a lot of topics in a way that the country is not. And, we're hoping to spread the word. I mean, every single state of this country has a Braver Angels alliances and workshops and groups going. So it's not just New York, but this is our New York Westchester chapter.
And under normal circumstances, we used to meet at the White Plains Library, but since March, we've been meeting virtually via Zoom to try to continue the same kinds of things.
5-minute break, and after that, the break, we'll be back, and we'll learn more about what Braver Angels is doing in Westchester and in the country, and we'll be speaking with David Greene and Randy Freeman. So, David and Randy, if you could stay on, we'll be back in 5 minutes. Thank you.
Okay.
Now, back to the Greenburgh Report on 1460 WVOX. Once again, here's Greenburgh Town Supervisor Paul Feiner.
Good morning. Westchester, I'm Paul Feiner. I'm the Greenburgh Town Supervisor. And my guests today are David Greene and Randy Freeman. And it's an organization called Braver Angels. And Braver Angels is a national organization with local chapters, and they're working to restore civic trust in the United States. They want to heal the wounds between left and right, and to build communities together. And actually, by working together, we could have a better country. One of the initiatives that they're taking is an initiative called With Malice Towards None. And David, could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I hope your listeners are catching the Lincoln theme here. Braver angels from better angels, and with malice towards none. Obviously, the last time the United States was this divided was the Civil War itself. And so it gives us a good place to start in terms of how to try to bring us together. And so the idea is that this newest campaign is really trying to focus on how to heal us post-November 3rd, because we know that no matter who wins, there's going to be a lot of hurt and angry people on either side. So what happens usually when people become more emotional in their responses and less calm or thoughtful about it, they tend to embrace what we call the four horsemen of polarization. One is stereotyping, which includes labeling. Second is dismissing, which means, well, you don't know what you're talking about. And then it comes down to outright ridicule or contempt for their fellow citizens who voted the other way. And so we're very worried about that, especially with the increase, for example, of social media hype and clickbaiting and all the kinds of things that seem on social media, whether it be Facebook or Twitter or even cable news, for example, that just seems to appeal to the immediate emotional response, which is not helpful in this situation. So what we're trying to do is that over the last month or so, we've been trying to invite Americans from religious congregations, from colleges and universities and civic organizations, for example, like the local Rotaries, to start to reflect on how we want to regard those who vote differently from us afterwards. Do we want to do it with malice, or do we want to do it with respect? And so we're asking them to pre-commit to participate in post-election gatherings to bring together people instead of dividing us. So that is to have discussions about it with protocols that we're going to give to them and have been giving to them about how they can cover their strong political differences and encourage people to support whatever is going to happen, but most of all, to commit to respect to the humanity of those who differ from us.
So, let's say you're talking about immigration and, there's, like, say, DACA or something, and there's some immigrants or people who are supporting rights of immigrants, and then there's some people who are almost racist. How could they come together and be civil when people are going to feel so strongly about this? Or, say, the abortion issue. How could people come together and be civil when the emotions are so high?
Randy, do you want to take that?
I can address that if you'd like. We have a series of workshops, which actually, let me just add this to With Malice Toward None. Right now, we have With Malice Toward None on college campuses, through civic groups, as Dave said, and through religious organizations. One of the things that the college groups is doing is having workshops ahead of time to prepare people for the With Malice Toward None campaign. And the workshops we have really encourage people to listen carefully with respect. They're very, very carefully crafted workshops. And in fact, we had one workshop that was piloted recently that's called Finding Common Ground. And that one was piloted with a group of people on both sides of the abortion issue. And they actually found some common ground. We have 19 areas of common ground or areas of agreement that they could find between people on either side of the abortion issue. All of these issues can be discussed. Even the most emotional issues can be discussed if people are willing to listen, and as Dave said, not to stereotype, not to ridicule, but just to really listen and try to understand the other side. Right. And I've run workshops, I know Dave has, where it's really worked. It's really been amazing.
And the protocols are very important, whether they be what we do generally in Braver Angels or specifically with Malice Towards None. There are very specific means of communication. Listening is very, very important, and to listen is also comes about in terms of how you respond. Because if you're fully listening to somebody instead of trying to think about what you're going to say to rebut them, you're going to get a lot more done. So when we have conversations, rebuttals are not part of the way we have our discussions, whether they be in debates or in these deep dives into issues. If you want to say something positively about what your point of view is, feel free to do that. But we stop anytime somebody's going to say, but your side is idiotic, or any kinds of language like that. So whether it be a debate chair or a moderator or whoever it is, has been trained in operating these protocols so that the kind of avenues these conversations take are simply more rational in terms of expressing how I feel rather than how I feel about you.
And one of the thoughts that I had is after an election, people are so tempted, if they're on the winning side, to demonize the other side, or to really punish the other side. And people on the losing side will be attacking the people on the winning side. If in some ways, if Biden wins, and the there's people on the other side who will want to impeach him even before he takes office. So I guess the goal of Malice Towards None, the Braver Angels, is to at least give the other side a chance. We have to take another break, and then we'll be talking about Malice Towards None and the Braver Angels and what you could do if you want to participate in this very good organization. I'm Paul Feiner, and we'll be right back.
Now back to the Greenburgh Report on 1460 WVOX. Once again, here's Greenburgh Town Supervisor Paul Feiner.
Hi, I'm Paul Feiner. I'm the Greenburgh Town Supervisor, and my guest is and the an organization called Braver Angels, and they basically are working very hard to reunite our country and to make the country not as polarized. We're probably in a cold civil war right now, and there's just a lot of anger and bitterness, and we have to come together as a country. Randy, if somebody wants to join Braver Angels, how do they go about it?
They can go onto the website, which is www.braverangels.org, and you can join right on the website for $12 a year or more if they'd like to make more, put more into it. And also, whether they join or not, they can take the pledge, the With Malice Toward None pledge, and we are trying to get individuals as well as organizations to take the pledge. And if you let me read the pledge just so you know what it is. This is the With Malice Toward None pledge. Regardless of how the election turns out, I will not hold hate, disdain, or ridicule for those who voted differently from me. Whether I am pleased or upset about the outcome, I will seek to understand the concerns and aspirations of those who voted differently and will look for opportunities to work with people with whom I disagree, which is exactly what Braver Angels is doing. We're working with people. We're getting people to work with people with whom they disagree.
And you said from your experiences that when people have dialogue and when they talk to each other, and if they listen, there's more commonality than people would anticipate.
Well, what happens is when they're sitting in a room together and it's a carefully run workshop, people also learn a little bit more about people's values, what's behind their belief system. I mean, I had one woman in one workshop who was from a family of Holocaust survivors, and she was a Trump supporter. But she was a Trump supporter because of her fears of what might happen if the other side got in. Whether we understand, whether we don't, we understand that there are some fears, there are values, there are different reasons for why people have chosen the person they've chosen or the side they've chosen. And the workshops help bring that out and help to humanize the people that we're talking to. Because often when we talk about those people, they're generalizations. They're what we think those people are. And often it's much more nuanced than that.
Right. And oftentimes the common ground, because nobody is seeking to get anybody to change their mind. Yeah. If it happens, it happens. But what we are seeking, and the common ground comes down to four basic core values: that we respect each other and how we listen to each other with intelligence and goodwill, how we can somehow maintain our own humility, and understand that even on our own side, there are issues. One of the things that we do in one of the basic workshops is to look at our own side, where Democrats kind of say, well, let's do a little self-criticism, and Republicans do a little self-criticism. And when you start doing that introspective look at yourself, you go, oops, wait a minute. We have our issues as well. The third one is that we want people to be honest in terms of how they feel about politics, candidates, the election, issues, whatever it is. And we ask them basically to become responsible citizens. And so when you take a look at the common ground, those four core values are really the common ground that we have. And if we have that respect and that humility and that honesty and that sense of responsible citizenship, then we can agree to disagree.
So an example could be in Tarrytown, recently there were some rallies, and you had the Black Lives Matter, and then you had the pro-blue, the pro-police, rallying pretty much the same time, and it became very controversial. But some of the people who are Black Lives, supporters may not be really anti-police. They may want some reform. So, an organization like Braver Angels, both sides would instead of.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a perfect example of that because you brought it up. A little over a year ago, we had a national convention in St. Louis, and we one of the things that was done was a model of workshop called 1-to-1, where two people from the opposite side sit down through a series of very carefully laid out questions to kind of find out where they come from, how they develop their points of view, et cetera, are there to help them hear each other and do these things that we've been talking about. Now, one of them was the head of the Republican Party in Cincinnati, who was one of the original members of the Ohio Tea Party. The other one was Hawk Newsom, who is the New York City president of Black Lives Matter. You can't get two more people on those opposites of those spectrums, but yet we all heard, and they experienced personally the commonality that they had, even though they came from two different sides, and understood that what each one was looking for was, in fact, respect. And not just respect from the other side, but also respect from people that they had assumed were neutral and had not yet really kind of treated them in the kind of respectful way that we at Braver Angels are talking about. So here you had, as a perfect example, what you were saying was going on in Tarrytown. And all we're saying is, if we can get people to come together and follow our protocols and have these conversations, we don't have those difficulties that are exacerbated, and quite frankly, extremely exacerbated by how social media and these days media projects these things. Because, as we all know, the old journalistic thing: if it bleeds, it leads. Now, if it outrages, it leads. So we have to combat that, and it's been very difficult.
I have another question. What if there's like some extreme views? Say like a Ku Klux Klan, or the people who are just real racists. I mean, would you engage with them, or are you really looking at engaging with more of the moderate people who are sort of on the moderate wing rather than the extremists?
I think that the Ku Klux Klan wouldn't be particularly interested in Braver Angels, but we don't really just have moderates that are engaging. Maybe more moderates are interested, but there are people who are pretty far to the right and pretty far to the left, not Ku Klux Klan and not far left Antifa or anything like that, but enough, and those are the real extremes, but enough people that are not just moderates, that really are interested in coming together respectfully and civilly and trying to understand where the other people are coming from. Because I think this country cannot move forward in a way that's helpful to the country if we can't come together and work together. Whether we disagree with the other side or not, that's irrelevant. But we have to come together as a people and as a government to be able to get anything done. Otherwise, nothing gets done.
Yeah, and you got to remember, just like any other organizations, people volunteer to be part of this. So they want, wherever they stand on that spectrum, and there are people who come from extreme left and extreme right. We're not talking about the people who say violence first. All right, we're talking about the people who say, I hate what you're thinking, and I hate your ideas, and I would never vote for that, but I want to stop arguing. I want to be able to just talk about this in a way that we used to be able to talk about these things in America.
I just want to mention that I lean to the right and Dave leans to the left, and we're friends.
Yeah. And actually, WNBC did a blurb on us about, the 2.5-minute thing, where they came to one of our alliance meetings at the library, and then they had probably one of the most far-right members of our group and myself have lunch together, and they filmed our conversation at lunch, where he and I, who come from very opposite points of view most of the time, we find areas of agreement because we listen to each other and we understand that there's a lot more gray in this world than there is black and white. And where we can find those grays, where we can find some commonality, is really where our goals are.
Well, it's the way Washington and Albany used to run, where members of Congress used to yell and scream and then go to the bars and have drinks with each other.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing, most recently with the business with, Joe Biden and John McCain, who used to be on these opposite parts, and then they go have lunch together. Because they're the best of friends.
Or Justice Ginsburg and
Scalia. Exactly.
That is great. Do you have any workshops planned right now for after the election?
Oh, sure. Well, there are national workshops right now because, as Dave mentioned, because we've had to go remote, there are workshops all over the country, and basically most of them are open. I think there's a workshop every Saturday. That's let's see. There's a workshop on Saturday. There are debates every single week. So if you go onto the website and look at the events that are planned, you can join a workshop. Anybody can join a workshop.
One final break, and we'll be back in a couple minutes. We'll be talking about BRAVER Angels with Randy Freeman and David Greene. I'm Paul Feiner, Greenburgh Supervisor.
WVOX. Once again, here's Greenburgh
Connected. I'm Paul Feiner, and we're back. Randy and David, will you be able to tell us about the website and what people could participate in some of the programs?
Well, it's really kind of simple once you get to the website and you can just look and again it's one of the unexpected positive consequences of this pandemic is that people who are now interested, instead of trying to search for a local group to become part of, or local workshops or local debates, to be able to get to, without traveling, a couple hours, everybody can join any of the workshops that exist or any of the debates that are being offered virtually. So it really has become a very easy thing to do. And there's a calendar of events. You can sign up for them. You can do the workshops, which are very basic skills workshops in terms of how to do the listening and how to become a participant in this. Red-blue workshops, which are kind of the idea of let's see who we are as Reds, let's see who we are as Blues, let's see what the stereotypes are, and understand how those stereotypes get in the way of real conversation. There are deep dives into specific issues, as you mentioned earlier. There are debates that take a resolution that really have no rebuttals, by the way. They're very specifically put together, as I mentioned before, where each side can talk alternately. Members of each side can talk alternately towards the resolution in a positive way and not a rebuttal of the other side, to basically state your opinion about it. So you get to actually listen to what other people's opinions are and understand that there is a reason that people feel the way they do and think the way they do. So these are all really easily accessible by getting onto the website.
Yeah, and there's also a depolarizing within debate, which is an opportunity to look internally to your inner polarizer and to see the ways you polarize with the other side, because we all point to the other side as the problem, but we need to look at ourselves as well. That's really important. And also on the website, if you look under Get Involved, and under Get Involved, you can find an event. And once you've experienced one of the workshops, we would love for people to join our local alliance in White Plains.
Absolutely.
We meet monthly, and we continue the conversation. And we've even met with local officials. So it's a really, really, it's a process, and we'd like more people to get involved with the process.
Right, and I'm glad that Randy mentioned that, because one of the goals ultimately is to see where we have this commonality, and to see if possibly on a local level we can actually recommend bipartisan legislation that it can advance and support what the particular community's needs are. So those are also part of what we're trying to do.
that is really great, because I feel that it's so needed. There's so many people who are worried that there'll be an increase in violence as a result of the election, and an organization like Braver Angels reduces the tension and disagreement and encourages people to just talk to each other. Do you have a lot of support from elected officials and at the national, state, or local level?
One of the things we're actually doing now is we're partnering with another group called No Labels. Yeah. And they work with, what's the coalition in Congress, Randy? It's a bipartisan coalition of congressmen who are working towards this Problem Solvers Caucus. And they're a bipartisan group of congressmen who are trying to do on a national level what we're trying to do with citizens. So we're working with them. The fact that you have us on your radio show is something. We've met with George Latimer, as Randy mentioned before, the Westchester executive. Yes. Yeah. So, and he was very interested in what we were doing, and we were talking about how we could help the Westchester legislature itself perhaps work better by having workshops for them. And so we're offering to do that, and people in various areas around the country are trying to do that. I know that Bill Doherty, one of the framers of Braver Angels, has worked with members of the Minnesota State Legislature on doing this as well. And God knows what's going on in Minnesota these days. They certainly need that. So those are examples of where we're trying to do more than just talking about what we can do to civilize our conversations, but also kind of work our way up and try to help members of various legislatures do the same.
I think that is. I think that's really great. And after,
by the way, we'll offer workshops to the Greenburgh Town Board too.
Absolutely.
Right. And I'm thinking like even with the Edgemont and Greenburgh controversy, this might be a perfect example where people could just talk to each other and have a dialogue. And
well, you know where to find us.
Definitely. So in some ways, this is really like a mediation program.
Well, Randy said it before. Bill Doherty is a nationally renowned professor of marriage counseling. And so the techniques are from that school of thought.
Right.
I mean, we're really doing marriage counseling for the whole country.
Yeah.
Right.
Before we get divorced.
Right. And the resources are provided free of charge. And is there a cost to participate in the initiatives?
Well, it's to join is as Randy said before, it's a $12 donation
a year
to be able to access everything that we have. But to do, as Randy said earlier, to be part of just this with malice towards none, there is no charge. You can just do that because it's a much more immediate, and we feel more necessary at this time. But and I have gotten both people on the not the extreme far left, but certainly the progressive left, and on the very conservative blue line right, for example, to join the group. And wherever they may be, and we feel it's really important to continue to do so.
That would be, that is great. And you also work with students at the colleges and universities.
And we're also attempting to. We were interrupted, unfortunately, by COVID. We were working with local high school districts, school districts, to make it part of their civics curriculum, and in New York State it's called participation in government. Well, if we're talking about participation in government, one of the things you should be learning is how to participate in government, not just how government works. And so we're when schools can get back to some sense of normality, we're going to continue to try to do that on a high school level as well as colleges and universities.
Yeah. And we're working with colleges. We actually have a pilot program going on right now for internships for college students, and we're working with lots of houses of worship. That's a big area, and civic organizations like the Rotary, like Dave mentioned. So those are all the areas where we're attempting to get a foothold.
I think this is like such a necessary, organization and such a fantastic, initiative. So I'm going to try spreading the word and encouraging people to get involved, in this effort, because we have to agree to meet, not change each other's, minds, and depolarize America and promote civil discourse. So I think it's really great. And again, we just have a couple seconds left. Could you tell us how people could get in touch with you?
Again, www.braverangels.org. If they want to get in touch with the state coordinator, I'm one of the state coordinators. Just scroll down to our leadership under our story, and you can contact the coordinators for the state, and we can help you get involved.
Right.
They can also contact Dave through me, or once
right.
they get
and you have both our emails, so
yeah.
you could certainly use those, and we'll expect to hear from you to work with your legislative group as well.
Yeah, and thank you so much for having us. This is really important.
Thank you, and good luck, and I'll be in touch. I'm Paul Feiner, Greenburgh Town Supervisor.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.